It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I'm Tyler. With me as always is my co-host Smitty. Go follow us on social medias at Around the 412 over on X, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. We're everywhere. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. Leave us a like on the video, subscribe there, and leave a comment of anything you'd like to see, anything that you enjoy that you have been seeing. YouTube's been growing a little bit lately, so we're going to try to push that as much as we can. This is the Pirates show. The Pirates we have not talked about since the Atlanta Braves series, so it's been close to 2 weeks since we've last spoken about the Pirates, and the holiday kind of got in the way of that. I went out of town for the 4th of July with my wife's mom's side of the family, having a family reunion. There were 53 of us in one house. The house was gigantic. The house was gigantic.
I mean, it would have had to have been.
It had 12 bedrooms, and in each bedroom, they either had like a king bed and a queen bed, or a king bed and 2 bunk beds. So, I mean, it had a ton of people in there, but it fit everybody. Yeah. It was a good time. We were in Branson, Missouri. Pirates, though, they pretty mediocre since we have been. Since it's literally the entire time this season has happened. They've been around 500, and that's kind of what they were. They were exactly that. If you go by the Cardinals series, the New York series, and then the series they just finished up against the Milwaukee Brewers, they went 500. They lose 2 to the Cardinals, go 2-2 against New York, and they won 2 against Milwaukee. In those games too, I went and checked on the math on this. I wanted to see what is the problem as far as, because we talked about the problems with the Pirates. We've talked about how they need more offense, and we talked about how their bullpen is not up to snuff, and how the starting pitching is carrying them. But like we've seen in recent weeks that the Pirates have started to have some not as quality starts from their starting pitching, which is fine. Like I'm not going to blame the starting pitching whatsoever in their faults for that. But in other cases, how can the team make up for it? And at times the bullpen is still frustrating, but I think they are a lot better than they have been prior to like May. Like we were talking about May.
Also supposed to get David Bednar and Ryan Brockie back this week. So
that's good. That is
weekend,
good.
I should say.
But when I turn my eyes to the offense, the games that they lost, and I'm just talking about the last 10 games that they played in those 3 series, they lost by a combined 10 runs, and in those losses, they scored 4, 2, 2, 2, and 0. And then if you, on the flip side of that, and also the math checks out too, that is averaging 2 runs per game in every game you lose in those series. The wins in these past 3 series are 5 runs, 14 runs, 8 runs, 12 runs, and then today, as of recording this, which is Thursday, it was the Skenes day against Milwaukee. Though just the 1 run, they ended up winning 1-0. But
that one.
That's a total of 40 runs, which averages out to 8 runs per game in your wins. So you're averaging 8 runs every time you win and 2 runs every time you lose. How is that sustainable over? Because it seems like this is not abnormality for the Pirates, that they have had several wins that have come by double-digit runs. I mean, they've had several games this year where they have scored double-digit runs.
They have.
I feel like more than league.
Last 10, yeah.
And
2 of their last 5 wins are by double digits.
How are you so hot and cold as an offense? That's what my question is. How are you so just on some days, and then the other days you're like a little leaguer trying to hit an MLB pitcher? At least that's what it seems like. I don't understand the inconsistency with the offense.
I wish I had an answer. But the only thing that I'll say, I guess, to me, it's a product of the talent or lack thereof. Like, I think that any given day you could do something like this, but like to string them together is where, for lack of better terms here, men separate themselves from the boys, and the good major leaguers separate themselves from the average or shouldn't even be major leaguers that we've seen the Pirates play a lot. Man, I mean, a lot to dive into over this 10-game stretch, honestly, but I want to kind of hit some checkpoints here with what we've seen happen. Jared Jones on the IL. Probably won't see him pitch for at least a month. Not going to throw for a couple of weeks. That lat strain, which he said wasn't a big deal. He said he felt like he could have kept pitching, but what was the point? And even with him saying that, I still felt like we weren't going to see him until after the All-Star break. But clearly it wasn't nothing. Grade 2 lat strain. So we're not going to see him for a little bit. I mentioned Baraki and Bednar working their way back there. I feel like we've seen Joey Bart take over as the number 1 catcher in front of Yasmani Grandal. Just when you look at the amount of reps that they've gotten over the last 10 days, it kind of looks that way to me that Joey Bart is the number 1 catcher. But we'll see if that takes place. We saw history that Friday game versus the Mets, 7 home runs, literally ran out of fireworks at PNC Park.
Yeah.
The team hitting 7 home runs. Josh Palacios coming up to replace basically Edward Olivares, what I believe is somebody that really liked the Eddie O addition when they made it. I thought it was an under the radar acquisition and in chasing the underlying numbers, which I don't have an issue with. I think it was time for them to make this switch. Palacios, at the very least, man, I think that he has the look of a 4th outfielder. Brings the energy for sure. Obviously has the pop in his bat. Seems to have a knack for coming up with a hit when he has to. Really good in pinch hit situations last year. So I think that definitely was, to me, a 1-for-1 swap that I wanted to see them make. But yeah, those were kind of like the talking points there. Is there anything specifically that happened in any of those games? Because I want to talk about today's game with Skenes and have a conversation about what everybody's kind of going nuts about with Paul Skenes. Was there anything within those previous games prior to today that you felt like was noteworthy that I didn't already kind of highlight there?
O'Neal Cruz has started to find a bat, at least over the last week or so of games, which is, and I wholeheartedly went in on him. I don't know if it was 2 weeks ago when we last spoke or before that, maybe the week before that, because O'Neal Cruz was not cutting it. His offense was absolutely abysmal, and for such a touted prospect player, everything you want to throw at him, he should have been performing better, and the team needs him to perform better if they want to have more consistent offense and if they want to be able to string some more wins together. He's one of the key factors of that, because O'Neal Cruz is a guy that you're going to be having bat in the top half of your lineup every single day. But if he's going to be an anchor, and I don't mean a good anchor to that offense, I mean like an anchor dragging them down, it's hard to say that he should have still been up there and batting where he was. Whenever I say for guys like Jack Sawinski, who honestly wasn't that batting that different than O'Neal Cruz had over a stretch of games, how am I supposed to say that Sawinski should be either out of the lineup or not in the lineup whatsoever? Or if he's in the lineup, he should be batting like 8th, 9th. How should I say that about him, but not Cruz? Cruz finding the bat over his last, if you go back to the last 15 games, because we're kind of like in between 15 to 7 days, according to the stats since we last spoke. But over those last 15 days, he's batting .306. His on base is .390, slugging .583. He has 11 hits in 11 games, and he has 3 home runs in that stretch, 7 RBIs. And if you shorten that down to the last 7 days, it jumps up to him batting .375. He's on base is .444, and his slugging is .750. So that is something that is notable to me, at least over the last week plus, is that O'Neal Cruz has started to find himself. And then we've mentioned him on past shows, but you didn't mention him just now. I just feel like I need to continue to mention him for how bad we berated on him. Rowdy Tellez just continues to be a good bat. He continues to be so good. Ever since June 1st hit, summer came and Big Poppy Rowdy came out, and he's not going anywhere. He has been so good as of late, and I have to give him credit every single time I can, especially for how hard everybody in Pittsburgh was, but I know myself very much so. I think I called him scum at one point, but I think I have to. Yeah. I have to give him his flowers every single time I can.
Ever since that kid, his best friend Xander, got around him, I feel like that kid needs season tickets or something. Just be always attached to Rowdy's hip. But you're right. The one thing I was kind of concerned about was what's going to happen when the calendar flips to July. Is that June Rowdy going to go away? And it hasn't been the case. Another hit today. I think he was only 1 for 3, a couple of strikeouts. But he's just putting together really good at bats. You mentioned O'Neal Cruz. The one thing I did want to say about him, even when you weren't getting what you kind of expect or hope to at the plate. I don't know if you feel this way. I don't know if the numbers will even back it up. Just from an eye test perspective, man, I feel like he's taken a step defensively this year, though. Like you're not seeing the errant throws in like occur as often as I feel like they were happening last year. Obviously, he's got the range and the arm to kind of make up for it. But yeah, I just feel like he looks like he's taken a leap a little bit defensively. I don't know if you feel that way, or like I said, if the numbers would back it up.
I honestly think so. I think he's done well at the shortstop position. I know there was remember how much talk there was that he can't stick it out at shortstop because he's 6'7". I think that he's proved a lot of that wrong. He's looked really good defensively this season. I mean, even just today, and I know we're going to talk about this game specifically with Paul Skenes, but I might as well talk about it now. I'm pretty sure today is the one where he had the flashy play throwing it to first, basically from a 180-degree angle, being able to turn around on a dime and get the pick at first. That was a great defensive play. And yeah, while you are not getting the offense over a season-long stretch that you would like from O'Neal Cruz, he has had defensive plays that have been better, and he's better at shortstop than I feel like most Pirate fans would have wanted him to be, because most people wanted him to be an outfielder. Let's face it. Everybody wanted him to move to outfield because they thought he couldn't stick it at shortstop. I think he's proved a lot of people wrong, and I think he's done really well.
A couple more things I want to bring up before we dive into this game. Connor Joe, is he still on the team? Like, I mean, this is crazy that looking at what he was doing at the beginning of the year, he has 20 at bats in the last 15 days, which is 2 less than Josh Palacios, who just came up recently. Same amount as Yasmani Grandal, same amount as Jared Triolo, only one more than Eddie O, who got sent down in favor of Josh Palacios. Like, I mean, man, his role on this team, we've seen it diminish. Maybe it's just because they haven't seen like a ton of lefties lately, but even like in pitch hitting situations, like you would expect to see Connor Joe more than what I feel like we've seen him late. And the other one that I wanted to bring up was Colin Holderman, who overall has had a really good season. But lately, man, it's been shaky. I think he's given up runs in 3 out of his last 7 outings, narrowly escaped the jam today in this one where the bases were loaded. He put the first 2 guys on, was able to get a couple guys out, walked a guy, then struck out the final guy to end the inning. But had to work himself out of a jam that he put himself in. I just feel like it's kind of been a different version of Colin Holderman. They've had to rely on him a lot more lately. Hopefully getting Ryan Baraki and David Bednar back will kind of settle him down. But yeah, I just feel like it's been a different version of Colin Holderman than we were accustomed to. Like his ERA has it's funny, ballooned to almost 2 now after it was at like 0.68. But so still having a really good season. It's just, it hasn't been quite as effective.
Yeah, I mean, that'll happen whenever you are a relief pitcher, and then over the past 15 days, his ERA has jumped up to 4.50, and then over the past 7 days, his ERA is actually still at 4.50 over those 7 days. So all of that ERA must have been accumulated over the last week of the season.
It was in 3 games.
I mean, he's been solid, but he has been shaky as of late. But I think we've seen that with several guys in that bullpen. And so maybe that's just some of the growing pains of a season that a lot of people go through. They're very streaky. And I also want to say, just to touch on Connor Joe, just because you mentioned him real quick, he had 20 over the last 15 days, but only 6 in the last 7 days. And he's only appeared in 4 games. And he doesn't have a hit in those 6 at-bats either. 0% average.
I want to talk a little bit about the trade deadline once we talk about this game, but maybe he is somebody that spot is kind of in jeopardy there. But yeah, the other thing I wanted to bring up is, man, even when he's effective, I just do not enjoy watching Aroldis Chapman pitch. He closed it out today, and it was pretty much 1, 2, 3 inning in the bottom of the 9th. So that's great, but it's just so frustrating to watch him work. Like you never know where the ball's going. Typically, full counts, or at least 2 ball counts, 3 ball. So like it's just laboring out there. If you guys remember a name, I'm about to not age myself because it's not like it was years and years and years ago, but like what a name to throw in there for Pirates fans. Antonio Bastardo, if you remember, the reliever for the Pirates, how slow paced he worked. But that was before there was a pitch clock. Like Aroldis Chapman is having these lengthy outings, throwing like 40 pitches an inning sometimes in an era where we have a pitch clock. So it's just crazy to see. But anyways, I want to talk about today's game because this is something that I feel like has been like people going crazy with the takes on Twitter. Paul Skenes does not give up a hit in today's game, but he also only worked 7 innings, 99 pitches he was pulled at after 7 innings, 11 strikeouts. some rare company Paul Skenes joins, with the only two pitchers being himself and Nolan Ryan, to have in one season 2 outings of 6+ innings, no hits, and 11+ strikeouts. So
Was he
very
pretty
rare
good?
company for Paul Skenes to join. But I want your take on this, because obviously there's the people that are out there that are like, let him go until he gives up a hit. Obviously going back to last year at LSU, he's had games where he's thrown more pitches than this. But I feel like that's missing some context, because you can talk about that for one single outing, sure, but he's also only 29 innings away from passing the total amount of innings that he's ever pitched.
That's what I was going to bring up. Sure, he's had outings that he has pitched more and thrown more, but he's not played an MLB season before. He's played a college season, which is drastically shorter than an MLB season. For how much we want to continue to have him in those games, those types of games where he could pitch a no-no if he goes. But say he goes out in the 8th and he gives up a run, or he gets injured or something worse. Was it worth it? I don't think so. And if you're going to throw him out there and he gets injured for the season, or it makes him worse for the rest of the season. Like I think back to what Jared Jones said earlier this season when people were asking about that sort of thing, like leaving them in the games to go longer. Like, you want to see these guys in September. You don't want them to get shut down after August and not pitch the rest of the season. I have no problem with them pulling him at 99 pitches after the 7th inning. I don't. Does it scare me? Absolutely, because I don't trust this bullpen. I don't trust the offense whatsoever. I don't trust anybody outside of the starting pitching to win you a game. But at that same breath, I think it's a smart decision to do. If you want this type of pitching to keep up for the remainder of this season, I don't think it's smart to be pushing that elbow and that arm to the 10th degree as much as you can throughout the entire season. I don't think so. If this is the playoffs, that's different. If we're in a postseason game and he's pitching a no-no and he's at 99 pitches, throw him out there. We're in the NLCS, throw him out there. I don't care. But if you're in July still, he's a rookie, he's never pitched that much in an entire season, I see no reason that you have to throw him back out there. I understand he's probably still your best option for the 8th inning, but at the same time, you don't want that 8th inning to be the reason why he could not be pitching in September. And so I will always be for pulling them out of the game at the proper moment to keep the health of the arm, the health of the pitcher, as opposed to maybe he's still the best option to throw out there just because your bullpen is not as up to snuff as Paul Skenes is. But I think that it was a smart decision by Derek Shelton. I agree with it wholeheartedly, even though he had a no-hitter. Just because they have a no-hitter going into the 8th inning doesn't mean you have to keep him in there. I think it was a smart decision.
Every time that I go on to Twitter and see that people feel so strongly one way or another about something, I almost feel wronged for not, and just like kind of walking in the middle. But I wouldn't have cared regardless of what the decision was that they made on this one.
Yeah.
Would it have been cool for them to let him continue to pitch? And let me kind of be like a devil's advocate and make the pitch for that side, because the reason that his pitch count was so high was early in the game. He was starting to cruise from like the 4th, 5th inning on, having very short innings. His shortest inning was in the 7th. Just the 1 inning prior where he only threw 6 pitches in that inning, which is why I kind of thought they might give him a shot. The other part of, to me, the case to make for him staying in that game is they do have the All-Star break coming up. Now, he's on the All-Star team, very well could pitch, very well could start for the NL All-Star team in my mind, but it doesn't have to. They could have had the extended break. Like, he could have opted out of being in the, now it's his first one and he's making history by being in it. So I didn't feel like that was going to be the case, but certainly the fact that he doesn't have another scheduled start for the Pirates now, until we don't know when, because they could redo the rotation following the All-Star break. So who knows? But that to me you could have made the case to at least see where the 8th went. Because what if he only would have had to throw 6 pitches again? Very unlikely that it would have happened. But if he could have gotten through both the remaining 2 innings in less than 15 pitches total, then I think if you tell Shelton that information ahead of time, for sure it's going to happen, then they would have let him do it. In that same breath, and this isn't to say that you should agree or disagree with it just based off this information, there are 30 teams in Major League Baseball. all 30 managers are making that exact same decision. 1 pitch away from 100. People, like, for whatever reason, use that as the threshold, which I think is another conversation. He was 1 pitch away from 100 pitches with still 2 innings to go. There in his first season in the major leagues, just 29 innings away from matching the largest workload that he's ever had. 30 managers in Major League Baseball are making that same decision. And if they were all fired tomorrow, Alan Saunders said this, so I can't take credit for it. If they were all fired tomorrow and rehired, 30 different managers are making that exact same decision as well. Like, this is this is the way that it works. So I can't hold it specifically against Derek Shelton. If you want to hold it against maybe just the way that pitchers, specifically ones this early in their career, are handled, if that's your opinion, then I can't necessarily fault you, I guess, if that's the way you want to think. I mean, the data kind of backs it up now. We have more information. That's why guys aren't throwing 150 plus pitches and throwing their arm off. But yeah, so I don't know. I didn't feel strongly about it one way or another, which I can tell was very rare when I went on there. But to kind of flip the conversation and not specifically just talk about the decision to pull him, man, Paul Skenes, already the best pitcher in baseball, in my opinion. Like, if you're pitching World Series Game 7s tomorrow, you're picking one pitcher in baseball to pitch that game. He's my pick, and he's at least in the conversation, I think, for everybody.
Who else would be the pick in reality?
I mean, yeah, Chris Sale, I think, would be in there, that conversation, with what the year that he's had for Atlanta. A lot of guys for Phillies on it, like Zach Wheeler and Ranger Suarez, both having great seasons. I know the Cubs 30 whatever plus year old rookie Shota Imananga.
Seth Lugo, it's probably among qualified pitchers for Kansas City, has pitched really well.
Which, by the way, was a name that was mentioned for imagine if the Pirates would have signed him. That was a name mentioned for the Pirates this offseason. If they would have signed him too, plus been getting, imagine just swapping Martin Perez out for Seth Lugo.
Oh man,
with this rotation, yeah,
we'd be even more pissed. I think that, and whenever I thought about this in the sense of, because I know we asked the question, because we were asked the question on Twitter like a month ago. How soon is it until Paul Skenes is the best athlete in Pittsburgh? Is it out of the question to say he's already the best athlete in Pittsburgh? I'm not saying their overall catalog of their career, but I'm saying
resume.
As of their resume. But as of right now, is there anyone at the height of their game better than what Paul Skenes is doing? I think there's only a couple options. I think you can only say like TJ Watt and maybe Sid still.
I think it is only. I think for me, it's only TJ. I love Sid, obviously top 5 all time in my opinion, but that's not where he is present day. I think TJ still is at the peak of his career, and Skenes is probably only getting better, but at least where he's at right now, I think that's the conversation is between those two.
It's crazy to me that he is first rookie to ever make the All-Star game after being drafted. Not only was he the first rookie, he was first 1-1. His first year to ever make it. He was in the Pirates organization for less than a year, and he was named to the All-Star game. That is absolutely mind-boggling how crazy that is. That no one else has ever done that before. And maybe this is bullish of me to say, but I think it's dumb that because they didn't bring him in up until May, and he's going to have probably around 8 to 10 less starts than a lot of these other pitchers. If he continues this for the rest of the season, he should 100% be in the conversation for not just Rookie of the Year, but he should be 100% in the conversation for the Cy Young. And because
is it that many starts different though?
He has 11 starts right now. Yeah. Okay, maybe it's not 10, but it's going to be 8 because he has 11 starts right now. Seth Lugo, for example, who leads the league in ERA for qualified pitchers. I don't know what the qualification is. It's probably number of starts. He has 19 right now. So he's 8 behind him. So as of right now, looking at everybody else, he's about 7 to 8 behind everybody else. are they not going to give him the Cy Young Award if he continues on this stretch? If he is like 7 to 8 starts behind somebody, like, do you think that that's something that they would hold against him?
No, because look at like the fact that he's already in the All-Star game and being talked about. Like he's the graphic for the NL All-Star pitchers. Like I think the league wants to promote him. I think if anything, and I believe it's deserved, but if anything, people could say that he shouldn't be in that conversation, but the league is pushing him to be. So I think it'd be the opposite. I think the league wants him to be in the conversation for not only Rookie of the Year, obviously, but also for the Cy Young. So, yeah, and by the way, like people were talking about like years of control and stuff like that. The Pirates benefit from this if this happens. They get draft pick compensation if he goes on to win one of these awards.
Mm-hmm.
They absolutely benefit from bringing him up when they do, and also obviously him going on to achieve individual accolades. This is could be huge for the Pirates.
He is. We were comparing him to Garrett Cole at the start of the season. Similar like trajectory as far as like coming out of college, expecting to be up after like 1 year. He's already better than Garrett Cole ever was as a Pirate, and I feel pretty confident in saying that.
Yeah, I think a lot of Pirates fans underrate how good Garrett Cole was, but I still agree.
He doesn't have the resume that Garrett Cole had, but I don't think Garrett Cole was ever at the peak that Paul Skenes has been since he's come in. And I understand how good Garrett Cole was. He was my favorite pitcher. But like Paul Skenes, I just feel like is on a different island than everybody else.
2015 was Garrett Cole's best year as a Pirate.
Mm-hmm.
He came in 4th place in Cy Young voting.
Arrieta won it, I'm assuming.
Yeah. It was Arrieta, Greinke.
He took steroids, so he cheated.
Greinke and Kershaw both on the Dodgers. Oddly, Mark Melancon got 5% of the votes for the Pirates that year.
Garrett Cole's ERA in 2015 was 2.6 for the season. 32 starts.
Yes. Yeah.
202 strikeouts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, these are numbers to me that Skenes is going to have better than, and other than probably the wins. Garrett Cole won 19 games that year for the Pirates.
Yeah, well,
on a 98-win team.
I mean, you and I were texting about it. He should have, he should have what, 8 wins now or 9 wins if we're looking at like, because you said 8.
Yeah, he wouldn't have been able to win his. He didn't go long enough in his very first start to even win that one. Regardless.
Right. But if you're counting today. And based off what you said yesterday of what he thought what he should be at, he should be at like 9 wins right now. He should have won at least like 9 out of his 11 starts. Like, have the Pirates?
He's never left a game trailing.
That's what I was about to ask. He's never, because I saw that graphic, I think, a day or two ago. He's never left a game and the Pirates have been losing.
Right.
That's not. He's so good. Yeah. He's so good.
And like the thing is, I don't. Okay, he's 22, so like it's an obvious statement to make. But I think we're just scratching the surface of what he's going to be like. He's already. This is another thing where like people that are really into baseball understand what I'm trying to say, but like it's going to sound stupid. He's already pitching more than he is just throwing. Like some guys are just throwers. Yeah, I'm not trying to take away from
Chapman is a thrower.
Yeah, right. I'm not trying to take away from Jared Jones, but to me, he's more of a thrower than a pitcher right now, and I think he's going to get better when he develops like that third pitch more and finds ways to continue to get better. But Skenes already and I think that you see it when he puts himself in these jams, like bases loaded or first and third with nobody out and works himself out of it because he's pitching, not just throwing. Like I think that for a 22-year-old, you're already seeing signs of that. So I really do think we're just scratching the surface of how good this kid's going to be. And it's crazy to think about how good he is already. Like this is literally so much more than what we thought was the best case scenario for him coming up.
Can you believe a year ago we were debating him or Dylan Cruz?
I was just talking to somebody on because I said, honestly, just happy that the Pirates didn't pirate. It's not the wording I use, but the Pirates didn't pirate and actually pick Paul Skenes, made the right draft choice. Like we can debate, however, in terms of the way that they've utilized him up to this point. I tend to agree with things that they've done for the most part with him. But the fact that they even just drafted him is a win based off how they've operated. Dylan Cruz going into the draft day of, Wyatt Langford was the favorite to be taken, like hours before. And then they took Paul Skenes, made the right choice. So cap tip, credit to the Pirates for making that call, which with the, revision, like 2020 hindsight, very easy decision. If you would have told me the things would play out this way. But yeah, very good points brought up to me too. It's like the Pirates aren't going to be able to pay a type of pitcher like this on the open market. You have to draft this type of guy when they come around. So they definitely made the right call.
Speaking of not being able to pay him, imagine the haul that we're going to get in 2029 when we trade Paul Skenes after he's won 4 Cy Youngs in a row. Imagine the haul we're going to get.
Don't even want to think about it.
I don't want to think about it either, but it's reality.
Last thing I wanted to talk about on here, because it got brought up, Taylor Ward, the Pirates have interest in. Now, people kind of ran with that. I'm not trying to put it against
Taylor Ward is a girl I went to high school with.
Well, there's another one. Plays for the Los Angeles Angels.
It tripped me up. Sorry.
He's an outfielder. 30 years old, under control for 2 more seasons after this year. 107 WRC plus this year, 14 homers, 40-ish RBIs, I believe, somewhere within that realm. But Paul Zeiss was talking about it. Okay, 44. Paul Zeiss brought up that he heard the Pirates were interested in him. And a lot of people, now I don't know what exactly was the wording that he used on the radio, but just going based off his post, I didn't take it as him saying like anything was imminent or like super close, just that the Pirates were talking to the Angels and trying to get something done. Like they wanted to get something done. I am not like a baseball sources guy. I typically only get info really on the Steelers, but I did talk to somebody after this came up just to like try to see if they had any info. And they said they've been talking to the Angels for like at least 3 weeks on Taylor Ward. But it's not only like they've been trying on, they've talked to the A's, they've talked to the Marlins. Like they're talking to a lot of teams. Is anything going to get done? I don't know. But like based off having that info, I'm not saying that they're going to make a big splash, but I do think that Cherington is going to add at least one bat here, which I'm not going to say is going to like satisfy me, but certainly if you're getting less at bats for Michael A. Taylor, Jack Sawinski. I just mentioned Josh Palacios, but I like him as a 4th outfielder. I don't necessarily want to see him out there every day either. If you get a Taylor Ward, Brent Rooker, JJ Bleday, Jazz Chisholm's an interesting one. I don't know that I'm like super interested in that one, but certainly better than what they have on the roster right now. If you get somebody like that, I think that I would be like, okay, at least they're trying something. This is an improvement on the roster.
Yeah, we wish, and you brought this up like a month ago. We wish it would have happened sooner. We wish they wouldn't have sat on their hands this long, because while I'm not going to be satisfied, and the reason I'm not going to be satisfied is because I would have been satisfied if this happened in the first week of June and not near the trade deadline. I think that the Pirates showed the clear problems early on. They didn't need to wait until towards the trade deadline to make a move like this. We were talking about it around that time. And while I will enjoy if they bring somebody in to add another bat, and I think it should make the team better. And another thing, I feel like we just got to be grateful that the Pirates haven't played themselves out of making it worth them trading for anybody. As of right now, currently sitting on Thursday evening as of recording this, they're only 2.5 games out of a wild card spot. We should just be thankful that hasn't even become bigger than what it was.
They got the All-Star break coming up, obviously. They got 3 with the White Sox before this. Like, I'm not saying that you should be guaranteeing sweeps, but if they were to get a sweep here, they're back at 500.
Yeah, they need to do everything into their power to improve this offense. I just said the numbers, and I understand that they have abnormal offensive numbers in some of their wins, but several of the games that you lose is not because of your pitching, it's because of your offense. They can't get any runs in to give them a chance, really, because you're not going to be able to rely on every outcome being like the one you saw today where Paul Skenes pitches 7 hitless. You end up winning 1-0. You can't go into it every series being able to do that. You can't rely on your starting pitching to be able to give you that type of outing every single time. They need to improve that offense. It's what they've needed to do for the past month. And while I think that I will be happy when they do it, they should have done it like a month ago. That's the only annoyance I'll probably have with it.
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's not that I necessarily disagree, but I also I said that was at least 3 weeks ago. Who knows how long they've been like trying to get something done and like what the ask was. There probably weren't as many teams that are going to be sellers then as there could be by the time we get to the deadline in a couple weeks because teams are going to have to make a decision. A month and a half ago or whatever, like you're talking about, there might have been like 3 or 4 teams that felt like they were out of it enough to be sellers. By the time we get to the deadline and they actually make a move, maybe that number is at least doubled. So there's more possibilities and it's not as much of a seller's market.
Yeah, that's a fair point too. They got to do something. If they get nothing done,
but not to bring this all the way back to the off season, but like a lot of this could have been prevented by just spending more / differently in the off season to not have these holes. So, it's kind of like a self-created thing that they now have to find a way to band-aid, if you will. But we'll see. Last question that I have for you before we get out of here. Is there anybody as we approach the trade deadline within the organization that you feel is an untouchable?
Does Paul Skenes count?
No, like somebody. Let me ask that differently. That has not touched the majors yet.
Okay. Probably not.
Okay, because I know like Bubba Chandler's had entered that conversation for a lot of people. What I would say for me is like, I mean, I don't know if there's a player available that I would be like, you got to trade, but like if the right trade comes about, sure, I'm trading.
That's what I'll say is I don't think there's anybody that's untouchable per se. I think there's a lot of guys that are almost untouchable, but you just got to make the right trade to make it happen. Like if Bubba Chandler is one where he's almost untouchable, I wouldn't just trade him just to trade him. But if you get a offer that's like too good to refuse, and Bubba Chandler just happens to be your part of that, if the trade is worth it, that's completely different. And that's a lot of times it's hard to see whether a trade's going to be worth it or not because you trade for the player they are and know what they're going to do for your team. And so that's the gamble you have to make. But if they make a trade that is potentially worth having Bubba Chandler go in a trade, then by all means, I trade him. I don't think that there's anybody that would be worth Bubba Chandler.
Yeah, I don't know who the player.
He's your number one prospect right now.
Mike Trout?
There's a few. Shohei.
The only reason I said Trout is Angels 16 games under 500, 12 and a half back to the wild card in the AL. My God, man, they just
Shohei, but the Dodgers retain. I don't know. He's probably the only one that I would say is close, but at the same time, if you can improve your team to potentially make the playoffs or make a run in the playoffs, I don't think any prospect is worth a chance at the postseason.
You know what I just realized? We were having so much fun talking about the Pirates, and we were off for 10 days. Didn't play a single one.
We did this the last time too.
Yeah. I'm wearing a Paul Skenes Game Changers shirt right now. Speaking of game changers. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. I also wanted to mention we're going to have a new link in the description. As of July 1st, we kicked off year 7 of rocking around the 412. So be sure to check that out. Already raised $300 for this year. So we appreciate the donations that we've gotten very early on in the process here. We appreciate that. Link for that will be in the description, as well as the link for Game Changers and pick6.la, as well as everything custom designs. Our friend Haley Wagner's small business does hats now. So I actually shouldn't even play that ad because now it's outdated because she does hats. Gonna get some around the 412 hats, and I'll show them off on here, and you guys can let me know how you feel about them, and then go get one of your own, of course. But shout out to her as well. And then Keats Barbershop, which is right above Tyler right now. You know what? Yeah, we'll play their ad. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah.
Smitty from Around the 412 here. And while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keeks Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keeks Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app The Cut. Book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keeks Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. Also, Keeks Barbershop, a drop-off location for Rocking Around the 412. So definitely got to make sure that we get that in there. Anything else?
Nope. Other than that, go Bucs.
40-minute Pirate Show. Yeah, let's go Bucs. And I know at least one person, John Sargison, will appreciate the fact that we didn't have any ads played up until the end here. So you're welcome for that. Other than that, for Smitty, for Tyler, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, follow us on everything at Around the 412. Leave us a 5-star review and subscribe if you're listening somewhere else, Apple, Spotify, that isn't YouTube. Until next time, we'll see you.